So after a bit of a disappointing game against the Barbarians yesterday, can the New England take on Australia? What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So we've finally got another team now being announced for the July internationals. It's the England team. These ones have been a little bit delayed because, of course, we had that England's Barbarians game going on. So they had a team announced for that. They waited for that game to be over. There's some Premiership finals being finished, so new players have been added. It's all been a bit jumbled up. So England are a little bit late to the game, but we finally have a team announcement now. There's going to be a lot to talk about in terms of what happened in that Barbarians game going on to Australia. I broke it down a bit more in the match report that we did, but we'll go through the England team. We'll see who's been picked. Now, I haven't been able to find any really interesting looking graphics that make a lot of sense, which is a bit of a shame. It's just a whole jumbled up mess. So this one's going to be slightly different. We're more going to just do forwards then backs and give a bit more of an overview rather than being able to go through each section because there's so many names and they're just all out of order. So starting off with the forwards, we've got Ollie Chesham, Luke Cowan-Dickie, Tom Curry, Charlie Ewels, Ellis Genge, Jamie George, Joe Hayes, Johnny Hill, Nick Ezekwe, Maro Itoje, Corny Laws, Lewis Ludlam, Bevan Rodd, Patrick Schickerling, I'm going to have to get used to saying that guy's name, Will Stewart, Sam Underhill, Billy Vunipola, Mako Vunipola, Jack Walker, and Jack Willis. Now, lots to go through here because obviously what we were doing in the other videos, we've been taking them section by section. So a bit more difficult because there's a whole spread of people. Even the graphics I might have on here might be even slightly different. So in terms of forwards, this is where I think England are more set. We see a lot of those bigger names come back. A lot of these names were not involved in that Barbarians game. A lot of them out in different finals and stuff. Of course, we saw a lot of these Saracens lads coming back in now. In terms of the front row, there's a couple of contenders here that we're most likely going to be seeing. Luke Cowan-Dickie, Jamie George. They're going to be your main two strings, I'd imagine, for playing that hooker position. Ellis Genge will certainly be looking for a bit of time on this field. I think there's not necessarily a great competition for the props department there. I imagine maybe I would lean towards Ellis Genge and Will Stewart. I was going for my two. I know Kyle Sinclair was out, so he wasn't going to be in this team. I did see Bevan Rodd play against in that Barbarians game. It just looked like he struggled a bit, unfortunately. The scrummaging certainly was a bit of an issue for him. There was at least 3 penalties conceded in that first half just from his side collapsing. So we'll be interested to see how he copes against an Australian squad in terms of scrummaging. But he did come off quite early. Then we had an injury. I'm actually a little bit surprised to see Schickerling still named in this squad. He did go out with that head injury, got shoulder charged by Will Skelton in that Barbarians game. But nice to see him still in the team. Obviously, it can't have been an enormous injury to still have been named in this team. So nice to see him in there. In terms of the locks, this is definitely more of what I was expecting to be seeing. To anyone that saw the Australian reaction video that I did, one of the areas that I pointed out in that Australia squad was they are looking pretty weak in terms of the lock department. So I was expecting England to go full board with the lock area. They'll want to get that line out sorted. They struggled a bit against the Barbarians, the line out, not going to lie, but again, a lot of these big contenders not necessarily there. So who have we got? Nick Ezekwe, Itoje, Courtney Laws, Ludlam. So there's a couple of big names in there. Did we also see Johnny Hill? Yes, did I say Johnny Hill? Can't remember. But a lot of big names there, a lot of caps in terms of that line-out situation. So I think that's probably a smart move. I think that'll be one of the weak areas in Australia's game. So load up yourself on top-tier blocks to try and get that line-out sorted. Steal a couple of line-outs, you just completely disrupt Australia's driving maul. If you get it yourself, we know England love the platform from the line-out. They're one of the biggest teams that really enjoyed settle down in that line-out. They normally like to either get that kick as far up the field as they can very early in the game, sort out that line-out, set themselves up, launch a set play. It's what England like to do. They like their strike run straight from line out, so I think this is a good move. In terms of the back row then, I'm going to have to sort of skirt very quickly through these. We got Tom Curry, Sam Underhill, Billy Vunipola. Billy Vunipola is going to be a big one coming back into this side. I did see a press conference a bit earlier on with Eddie Jones about the selection, why Billy Vunipola came back in. He said he's gone away from international rugby. He didn't think he was up to the standard. He's gone away. He's worked quite closely with him outside of that international window just to keep up to where he is sort of ability-wise. He said he's now back on top form. He's now back at the England side, so not a bad move. Tom Curry didn't play terribly against the Barbarians. He was certainly trying to lead the charge of it. I thought Sam Underhill was quite quiet He could have even been subbed, and I just didn't notice. He just felt very quiet in that game. Not what I expected from Sam Underhill. A couple of names missing here as well. No, Sam Simmons out with an injury. There is a couple of other injuries. We'll get onto them a little bit later. So there's a good bit of talent here. People like Jack Walker and Jack Willis, I don't know as much about as the rest of the team. So it'd be nice to see them. There are a couple of uncapped players coming into the side, which would be nice to test out there. So the forwards is where I think England are probably a little bit more settled. Maybe that front row could be a bit of a weakness. I think they're very strong in terms of locks, and I think they've got some big competition here for back rows. But that front row, we'll wait and see what happens against that Australia team. On to the backs then, and certainly a couple of big calls in here. Not what a lot of people would be expecting, I guess. There's been quite a few injuries as well in terms of the back, so there's been a bit of a switch up here. So we've got Harry Arendelle, not someone I know a lot about, looking forward to see a bit from him. Danny Kerr getting into the team, which is a bit of a surprise, to be honest. We were all a bit surprised to see that he got named to be in that Barbarians game, and to be honest, I thought he was quite quiet. In that game. I'm obviously not a international rugby coach, so obviously Eddie Jones has seen something. I imagine more he's prepping for the World Cup 2023. I imagine he's trying to find form, he's trying to get a bit of set plays and stuff going, so he's trying to find the players he wants to be in that World Cup. So I think probably that Barbarians game was just see Danny Kerr was fit enough, he was going to be able to get back into that international scene, probably play him a bit more in these Australia games. Don't think it's a terrible move. Joe Thockiner-Singer, Fraser Dingwall, Owen Farrell, Tommy Freeman, George Furbank, Will Joseph, Joe Marchant, Johnny May. Johnny May got in again. I thought he was a bit quiet during the Barbarians. What do I know? Jack Knoll, Guy Porter, Harry Randall, Jack Van Portvliet. That is a name I have never heard of. Over at the Leicester Tigers, apparently. I haven't caught a lot of English club level rugby for a good while. So all of these lads that are up and coming, if you remember last year, Marcus Smith came on the scene. I was like, who is this guy? Marcus Smith coming out of nowhere. Boom. Into the England International, smashing it. Into Lions, smashing it. So, these lads come up. I've never heard of them, but I'm sure they'll be also. Speaking of which, Marcus Smith is the next name on the list that I've got here. And then finally, Freddie Stewart. So, again, this one's a bit more of a sprinkling, I would say. A couple of new names in here, a couple of new caps coming in. I think it's good, especially if he's going on form from those club level leagues. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Again, a couple of big names missing here. A couple of people will be surprised not to see Ben Youngs in there. I believe he's been rested on purpose. He's not just been left off. But I think the scrum half situation is looking a little bit light, I imagine. Danny Kerr, I imagine, is probably the number one choice there, unless someone's going to be able to, or maybe Harry Randall might be able to offer something there. I would imagine Danny Kerr is your first choice out of everyone there. Your fly halves, Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell. Where are they going for? I think as well, now that we've got Henry Slade's out with an injury, I believe, and you've not got the likes of Manu Tuolagi, they might not be running the Marcus Smith 10 and having two legitimate centres. They may well be looking here to do Marcus Smith at 10, Owen Farrell inside centre, and then maybe you've got Joe Marchant playing in that outside centre shirt. Not really sure what they're going to do in that back line. It's looking a bit more sparse. This is where the injuries are beginning to hit. In terms of the wingers, let's do the back three. Let's do the back three. We've got Johnny May, who again, he got a try against Barbarians. I did think he was a little bit quiet. I would have just liked to see him get on, but I do believe he's come back for a bit of a long-term injury. So trying to find his footing again. There's nothing too wrong with that. Jack Knoll, I thought Jack Knoll played well, actually. It's just handling errors for Jack Knoll. So I mean, that's something that can be improved on. George Furbank, I imagine, will be more looking towards that fullback position. I know he sort of moves around a bit, but George Furbank will be competing there. Freddie Stewart, for me, is probably the top choice in terms of that fullback position. We did also see Tommy Freeman, who actually had quite a good game, in all honesty, against the Barbarians. He was probably one of the few names that I don't really think put a foot too wrong. He did quite nice counter runs. It was nice to see. So, a bit of competition there, but I think I'd still be leaning towards Freddie Stewart. So, in terms of a back three, I imagine the sort of setup will probably be Johnny May left wing. It might well be a bit of a competition between Joe Thockiner-Singer and Joe Marchant, who I know can play outside centre, but he does also play on that right wing, so there might be a bit of competition there. And probably Freddie Stewart, I imagine we get the look in there, but I am quite interested to see what Tommy Freeman does. He actually plays kind of similarly to Freddie Stewart in terms of the counter run, but I reckon Freddie Stewart's probably a bit better in the air from what I've seen anyway. So I think there's a nice sprinkling here, but I certainly think it's not necessarily the strongest England team we've ever seen, and the Australian again is also not the strongest team, so maybe there's some big calls there. Maybe this will actually be a really good chance to get some lesser cap players, some uncapped players, a bit of real tier 1 nation experience. Just on terms of the injury talks as well, I think a quick list of some of the injuries they're missing off. Nick Dolly, Alex Dornbrandt, George Ford, who I think picked up an injury in the final, if I believe. I thought he was out with an injury. I did see highlights with him sort of on the sideline there. No Joe Launchbury, Sam Simmons, Kyle Sinclair, Henry Slade, Manu Tuilagi, Anthony Watson. Completely forgot about Anthony Watson. Yeah, not there either. So, again, that's a bit of a blow in terms of their winger and fullback. I mean, he's capable of playing a lot of positions. No Elliot Daly that I'm noticing. I haven't heard anything about why Elliot Daly's not in there. That could be an injury for all I know. But I actually feel like the way the team is being set up, I think Elliot Daly would actually be really advantageous to have in there. You know, he's played his wing, he plays his fullback, he plays his outside centre, very much that utility back zone. And with a couple of those areas being, I'm not quite sure how they're going to link up. I think maybe Elliot Daly would be able to do okay in there, really. We did talk about in the Australia game, no Reece Hodge on the Australian team, which means no real long-range kicker, like extreme long-range. Everyone kicks long-range nowadays, but real long-range kicking is what Reece Hodge offers. And I said, oh, well, if Elliot Daly's in the squad, he's going to be the exact counter to that in this England squad. So for him not to be in there either, looks like we might be seeing, hopefully, a bit of expansive rugby between England and Australia. Might not be doing all the kicks that we normally get to see. From both sides, they do rely on their kickers quite a lot. So it'd be nice to see if we get a bit more expansive rugby. Marcus Smith's kicking during the Barbarians game was certainly subpar. So I think if they did a 10-12 setup between Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell, they might lean more towards Owen Farrell in terms of the kicking duties and just have him play that inside centre. Not sure what they're going to do there. There's a lot to work on, though. If anyone saw the match report that we did for the Barbarians, that game certainly didn't go how England went. I've done a bit of research today seeing what Eddie Jones has said about the game. He seems to be, of course, it's Eddie Jones. It's what he does. He was like, we didn't care about the result that much. Like, we lost. We wish we'd won, but oh well. They said they've been doing a lot more testing. They were trying to use that game as a bit of a benchmark as how they want to play against Australia. You can never be too sure with Eddie Jones whether he's telling the truth or whether this is all fantastic media ploys. But there's certainly some key areas they want to be working on. The kicking from Marcus Smith wasn't good. I assume that's his next 2 weeks is just sat there doing a bunch of kicking, make sure that's all right. Some of the breakdown areas certainly didn't go right for them, especially with some of the big names already in there. Tom Curry, Sam Underhill, Courtney Laws, these lads were all playing against the Barbarians and it still wasn't very clean. Those are the lads they're going to be wanting to have worked very hard for them in the Australia game. You know, going up against people like Michael Hooper, You've just got to clear that lad out instantly. You just can't be letting him get over the ball. It's going to be a really interesting series. I'm really looking forward to see some of these games. I'm quite liking, actually, that this is a bit of a newer England squad, a bit of a lesser capped squad, because I feel like England can sometimes just fall into a certain way they play. So I would really actually quite like to see some of these young lads get in with a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of drive, and just sort of play a bit more expansive rugby. I'm really hoping these games turn into some try-fests. I really hope we don't just see teams taking it in turns, taking the 3 points. I'd really love to see some of these lads just launch, go for the tries, go for the driving maul. I certainly think England have probably got the advantage in terms of the line-out situation. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see the England team actually depending on their forwards a bit more. But I would probably say in terms of the backs, I'm leaning towards Australia having a better set of backs from the sort of teams I've been creating as we've been making these videos. So it could go either way, but I'm interested to know what you guys have to say. So make sure you drop down in the comments what you think of the team, who's been left off you really think should have gone in there. Is there anyone in the team that you think, why is that guy in the team? I really enjoy reading through the comments. It's been really fun reading the comments on all these videos as we've been going through them. What did you think of the England Barbarians game, and who do you think will win the England-Australia series? It's going to be a lot of fun to check out. Of course, we will be doing videos covering those July internationals, including some match reports, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel just to keep up to date when all the latest videos come out. And if you've enjoyed this one today, make sure to drop it a like. We have also got a video coming out very soon about joining the fantasy series, the Predictor series on Super Brew, to get everyone involved, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I'm going to try and get that up as soon as possible so that everyone can get involved throughout the July internationals. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.